Welcome back, folks, for another episode of the College Baseball Show, Top 25 show we do every Monday. If we record, we drop it on Tuesday, but we go live for you on most of these episodes as long as we don't have a interview going in the middle here. And today, no interview. It's just the three of us today, joined again by Will Massa. How we doing, Will?
I'm doing fantastic. It is 65 and sunny. I wore a t-shirt today, and that just rejuvenated my feelings for life and just fired up. I mean, this is a crazy week in college baseball. I was actually talking to somebody over the weekend, and it seems like this weekend specifically, like weekend 4, is the chaos weekend because you have half the country starting conference play, and the other half is on the brink of starting conference play, and they're playing what in theory are gimmies, but they're look ahead spots, and we saw a ton of teams lose because of it. But it seems every single year that this week specifically is a little bit more chaotic than even the early season tournaments, because at that point teams are still figuring things out. Feels like things are a little bit more ironed out at 4 weeks in, and it's just madness. Like, this was probably the most insane week of college baseball we've had so far.
Yeah, just a ton of top 25 teams moving around, and we'll talk about all those. But we also have our friend over from 64 Analytics, Jason Ratcliffe. How we doing, Jason?
Doing well. Kind of just want to echo everything Will just said. I feel like we're to the point that every time it feels like we have a top 25 or a top 5 or a top 15, whatever number you want to give, someone throws out a stinker, or you feel like you have a feel for a pitcher and then it's a struggle. It doesn't feel like home field advantage is really a thing this year. There are a lot of confounding variables that are really throwing a lot of things off right now. But I do want to echo what Will said, that I think that this upcoming weekend was really going to mean a lot. You're going to get your second weekend for some of your Big Ten, your ACC. You're going to get some of your first weekends. Like, you're going to see the Arkansas, Mississippi State. Is Mississippi State for real? Is Arkansas that struggling this month? I mean, there's a lot of question marks that you may not get full answers, but you should get a lot more than just more questions. I feel like every outcome we're getting right now is just producing more questions rather than more answers.
Yeah, I was talking to a good friend of mine over the weekend, and I go, I think there's 100 good teams maybe in baseball this year and 5 great teams. It doesn't feel like there's 20 really great teams this year that you're like, okay, those are going to be top 25 most of the year. It feels like anybody could be in the top 25. I mean, really, anything from 10 down to 40 could be in the top 25. That's how much it feels to me right now. Like, that feels that wide open. So the top 25, there's a lot of different polls out. There's a lot of people all over the board, and I'm okay with it, honestly, because right now we don't know. Till we start SEC play, till we really get into the deep of ACC play, Big Ten teams play each other, and Big 12 again, we want to see all those teams play each other. We don't know. I mean, they're playing people that we might assume are bottom 200 teams, but we don't know that. There's no way to know that until we really get to the league. So we're there, fellas. We made it through another week. Let's talk first about Virginia, man. They make a huge statement. I don't think anybody in the country said, hey, they're going to go in and take 2 out of 3. People was like, hey, they'll get 1. I don't think anybody thought that they were going to make that statement at Chapel Hill, the way that UNC had run ruled the last 5 games before that. Talk to me a little bit about that, Jason, as we looked at that and go, that's an incredible win for Virginia, who had been struggling on both sides of the ball, going in there and winning that series.
Yeah, and first off, I want to shout out Charlotte for a phenomenal, I think, what was that, a Tuesday win with Chase Oxborough. He had, I think, 6 innings pitched. He was one of our players of the week, or will be soon. So Virginia was playing them in the midweek, so I just wanted to – I usually like to think of the full week for these teams, and I think Charlotte's a really good team. So kind of splitting that, it's not a surprise for me that they split it. It was a little bit of a surprise for me how they came out and they hit up DeCaro hard, which just doesn't really happen. And not only that, but it continues a little bit of the sentiment that we're seeing, that there's not as much, I guess we could call it home field advantage, at least at the beginning of the year. Maybe it's because, college basketball is still going, Will was just referencing the temperature. Maybe some places are a little colder. I know Chapel Hill was quite lovely, but it's one of the things where you never expected it to be 22-5 those first 2 games, and they lost by 1 the last. I mean, so they were on the precipice of sweeping a top 10 team on the road. I mean, you have to really like what you're seeing from this team from a number of different aspects. Kyle Johnson, he put up a 1,700 OPS. I mean, they did a lot of things right in order to kind of find themselves at the end of the week, coming out of it much better than they came into it.
Yeah, if you had told me on Wednesday, hey, this team's going to go take 2 or 3 from Chapel Hill, I would have laughed in your face and said, one, they don't have Kyle Johnson throwing on Fridays for them, so they're already struggling to find their weekend rotation, set that up, and they got to face one of the best weekend rotations in college baseball. They went down there, they dominated, they played well. Will, the offense for UNC, who had been there the previous 5 games, seemed absent.
Yeah, and I want to tip my cap to the Virginia offense really quick. 37 hits and held the starting rotation of North Carolina to 10 combined innings over this series. Like, if you told me that starting pitchers for North Carolina were going to throw 10 combined innings this weekend, I would never have believed you coming into this. But 37 hits, the offense was unbelievable. They walked close to the amount that they struck out, other than that second game where they struck out 10 times. But a really solid performance from the Virginia offense across the board. And North Carolina's offense just, quite frankly, couldn't keep up. It seemed like Virginia was scoring in different ways. There was that crazy play where the ball was hit towards the first baseman. They ended up stealing another a run out of that. They were taking extra bags, being ultra aggressive on the bases. A really fun series for the Cavs. And I think it was one of those things that we thought they were going to be good coming into the year. They haven't quite hit the stride yet. And all of a sudden, here they are. Eric Becker looked really good this weekend. Gracia had a solid weekend. Like Jason mentioned, Kyle Johnson lit it on fire. Just a sleepy weekend, it felt like, for North Carolina, like kind of a sleep at the wheel kind of deal. And that's going to happen in conference play. Like, you get punched in the mouth in game 1, and then it kind of spirals into that second game, and you get outscored 22-5 in the first 2 games. And then, a really big win in the doubleheader, getting that extra innings win, because I mean, a doubleheader is just as easy to get
in the
swept
12th,
lose
right?
That morning.
Was it the
12th?
Yeah,
in the 12th inning, North Carolina scores 2, punches that thing home because they're on the brink of losing the entire series. So you got to give some credit for getting the 3rd game there for the Tar Heels. But man, I was uber impressed with Virginia. This is a really fun series.
Eerily similar to their series loss last year to start against Stanford. Like, it just felt like that. And I know that I mentioned it on the Thursday show. It was weird. It really felt weird that they were going to come out like that. But tip of the hat to Coach Pollard and squad there, getting Virginia ready to go play a road series. That's hard enough to win an ACC road series, but against probably the best 3 pitchers you're going to see in college baseball as a weekend rotation for a ACC team. Really, really great job there for Virginia. Let's move on to USC. They remain undefeated, fellas. And I mean, Mason Edwards, 0 ERA still, just continues to go out there and dominate. Like, he just shoves. It's I know that we had talked about it in the preseason. We're like, yeah, I said, I think he might be the most improved player. Like, yeah, I think he's still going to struggle. He's still got more to learn. Man, he has shown under Stank that he's ready to go.
Yeah, I was dead wrong about this pitching staff. I said it in the preseason. I was like, I'm not really sure what they're going to be. And I mentioned it last Monday too, that I wasn't 100% sure or on Saturday morning, actually, that I wasn't sure what this pitching staff was going to be. And it is just lights out. And they allow 3 runs against Illinois, all 3 coming in game 3. They went 4-0, 4-0, 5-3. And it kind of looked like that 3rd game was going to get away from them. And it was like, dang, they're going to walk away from this thing 2-1 with a 3-1 loss on Sunday. Like, I've said it before, like, this offense scores 3 runs. They don't have to do a ton else the way that they're pitching right now. Now, this week will be an interesting week in the midweeks. They do have Long Beach. They got USD, 2 solid opponents in the Big West, and then they got Northwestern next weekend in Evanston. So a little bit of some colder travel for the Trojans. Be curious to see how that pitching translates in the Midwest. But man, they're set up to potentially just keep rolling until I don't know. I don't even know at this point. Like, this pitching staff looks unhittable top to bottom. I don't even know when a team is really going to put it against them.
It's even midweeks. They're going out there and shutting people out in midweeks and looking great. I mean, they went and beat UC Irvine, who was on a hot streak coming off that Vegas tournament. They go down there and beat them at their play. Like, wow, like, they're winning these games. Jason, we talked about it, and you have 2 of these top 10 pitchers here from SC in your guys' rankings. They've just been that good. They deserve to be there.
Oh, I mean, they lead the country in OPS allowed at like sub 500. It's 469, which is that's insane. A sub 500 OPS allowed. That's basically the Mendoza line with like a walk every now and again. Then that's as a staff. That's not just 1 to 2, but that's every single person on the staff. So they've got it right now to where I mean, Will, you were just mentioning they blanked, Illinois for those first two games. It's almost as if they can write in at least one game on Friday and Saturday, if not both. And so, to your point, it's like, when are they going to slow down? I think the only thing that will slow them down is if their offense doesn't pick it up, because their offense, they're about like the 63rd percentile from OPS. They're 825 as a team, well, but about 364. So, I mean, they're good. And they're good enough. I mean, it's kind of the thing that's breaking a little bit of the models, because, you look at what's kind of shaped baseball over the past like 5 or so years. It's kind of like 1 to 2 really strong power pitchers, and then just some like mashers, like absolute mashers, probably like 2 through 6, that kind of get you that 5 to 7 runs. You get those 2 power arms that win you on a Friday and Saturday, and then you can outlast them. With USC, it's kind of a little bit of the opposite. It's just like, hey, let's get to 4 or 5. They almost feel like Coastal of last year, where it was like, hey, let's get 5 runs and we'll win regardless. So that they may not need to have that masher, but I do think if they run into a little bit of, it's because, those 4 to 5 run wins, or 5 to 1, 4 to 2, are going to turn into 2 to 3. That would really be where potentially the only area where they could slip up.
Yeah, and this was an Illinois team that had been on a 5-game winning streak, had been hitting the ball really, really well.
Good team.
They went in there and shut down. I mean, that was a good Illinois team. I think that they're going to be good in Big Ten play, and they looked like they didn't know how to hit that weekend. It was crazy how good this USC staff has been. Again, this is a USC team that was 1 win away from winning the Corvallis Regional last year, was undefeated going into the finals, and ended up losing 2 to Oregon State. But a really good job there by Stank, really coaching up that team. I really like where they're at. Again, they deserve to be where they're at. We'll tell you where they're at in our rankings when we get there. Texas also remains undefeated. The other team there in D1 baseball is undefeated. Full team effort there. It seemed like they are just firing on all cylinders. Yes, I know it's USC Upstate, Jason, but really offensively, pitching, like, it didn't feel like there's anything that they're lacking right now. Did I lose Jason?
I believe we lost.
Will, what are your thoughts here on Texas? I mean, offensively, it looked like they got all their guys. Mendoza's going, Borba's going now with Tinney and Robbins. Like, this is a full offensive performance, and the pitching staff's been good.
Yeah, that's the biggest piece for me, is that the offense is firing on all cylinders. Really, that was the stopgap in 2025. They bring in Carson Tinney and Aiden Robbins, like you mentioned, and those 2 guys have been lighting it on fire. And I think you have to be really fired up about what that offense has been able to accomplish so far. And the pitching staff, I mean, is just as rock steady as they come. They're just unbelievable. This is going to be the real test for me this weekend, or this week, really. They have a really, really feisty Texas State team on Tuesday.
Yeah.
In San Marcos. So a little bit of a big brother, little brother kind of matchup going on in the midweek. That'll be a really fun one to watch tomorrow. And then they've got Ole Miss this weekend. So, and that Ole Miss offense is really, really good. Now, there's some questions going on the pitching staff. However, That's a really, really good offensive test to see where this pitching staff is actually at. So this is a big week for the Longhorns, but right now they look just about as unbeatable as anybody.
I mean, when you're one of the last 2 undefeated teams and you're beating everybody who's in front of you, and you're beating them in every facet right now, the offense was what we had question marks early. They've answered those. That looks really good. Jason, every part of Texas looks good right now. I can't really pinpoint anything that I say, hey, they need to step up to be better in SEC play.
Yeah, absolutely. One guy that I wanted to give a quick shout out to was Josh Livingston. He was kind of one of those players from their portal class that I was trying to figure out really where he was going to be fitting in. He was from Wichita State, and to see him get that walk-off, I think, to end Game 3 was really good to see. I think he had a couple of home runs that week. I think we have him for over 2,000 OPS on the weekend. Yeah. So him and Borba, and we talked, I think you mentioned Ernest. I mean, they've – the interesting is we didn't really mention Tinney, and I mean, Aiden Robbins, another name not really mentioned within kind of looking up and down their list of really where they did well. I mean, Robbins had a couple of home runs clearly, but I mean, it's the nice thing is they've got depth within their lineup. I mean, we were just talking about, hey, where do you see kind of that consistency and success? It's usually not almost like a North Carolina 3 or 4 years ago, where they had pretty much like what it felt like the top 3 to 4 hitters in the ACC, kind of. And we saw that. I'm trying to remember the North Carolina Honeycutt, who I think went 4 for 4 in the spring game for the Major League Baseball, hit 4 bombs. They didn't have a great like 6 through 9, and it kind of made it to where when 1 or 2 of those guys at the top were struggling a little bit, they struggled offensively. This kind of feels like the inverse. It kind of just feels like who's going to pick up the bat for that day for Texas. Now, will it continue? Like, we'll see. Is we'll just say, like, Ole Miss, I'm interested in their pitching staff. Their hitting is for real. Yeah. For me, is what does Ruger look like? Because Ruger looks like potentially one of the best pitchers. I mean, he may be the best pitcher in college baseball right now. I mean, obviously, you have your Dax Whitneys of the world, but just from like a output and what that output is meaning for your team, there's not a lot of individuals who are creating more than he is at the moment. So what does he do against an elite lineup? And then does the hitting continue for them? And if they do, I mean, we have them as number 1 just because it feels like right now they don't have any holes, which is pretty impressive to see for them early on.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with anybody if they want to move Texas to 1. I said it over the weekend show. I said, hey, if somebody wants to move them to 1, I'm okay with that. I understand that. I think UCLA is the best team right now.
Yeah, agreed.
But I would be fine if you want to move Texas there. I wouldn't argue with you. Southern Miss, still top 10, man. Like, this is a team that was sitting on the bubble of top 25 in a lot of polls, and they just keep winning games, and the teams that they beat are doing well. So it's not even like they beat teams that are struggling. They beat some really good teams. UCSB, only 2 losses this season are to this team, and they keep winning games. I mean, yeah, and their only losses to Jackson, Florida, who's probably going to be the first right-hander taken off the draft board this year. Will, what do they do to stay in the top 10 now that the schedule kind of thins out a little bit here?
Yeah, they did drop that midweek to Nichols after the really emotional win against Mississippi State. That was a hell of a game, such a fun game at the Pete. Those are going to happen. Those are definitely going to happen. Nichols is a very solid program. We've seen them take down LSU in the past in the midweeks. Like they play very good baseball. This week is another really fun one for Southern Miss. They get Ole Miss tomorrow in the midweek. Yep. They're going to roll out a bunch of freshmen like they have been, and those freshman arms for Southern Miss have been unbelievable. Like guys that aren't even really even guys that are getting loose in the bullpen on weekends are going out and carving on midweeks. Guys like Dylan Causey, guys like Bruce Littleton, these guys are going out there and doing what they do in midweeks. And it's really, really impressive that Ostrander doesn't have to dip into that bullpen really on the midweeks at all. Like he doesn't have to really touch anybody that's been used on weekends for the most part. And then they've got Arkansas State next weekend, who's been a very pleasant surprise. It's going to be a good test. They're going on the road. It's going to be a fun Sun Belt series. This is a big week for Southern Miss. Arguably, I would argue it's probably their second toughest, maybe third toughest weekend in the Sun Belt. They do play Texas State and they do play Louisiana. Those are going to be 2 really fun series a little bit later on. But this is a really good test early to see them in Sun Belt play.
Yeah. Jason, they do play Arkansas State. Good team. Red Wolves have been very good this year. Do you think that they have to win all weekend series here to kind of stay in the top 10 throughout the season, since it's like a little bit softer Sun Belt than we were hoping for this season?
Could you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry, it broke up real bad over here.
I was just asking if we think that they have to kind of win every series this year to kind of stay in the top 10.
No. I'm going to say no. I think primarily because of what we saw this weekend, what we've seen today, is that if you have teams that are losing 2 at home to Stetson that are in the top 10, you can lose a game at home to Arkansas State, and just like Arkansas did, and still be in the top 10. Now, it'll be unique to see from an RPI perspective. I think from a subjective perspective, the answer to that is yes, they can lose a weekend. But what does it look like because right now I don't know where Arkansas State is from an RPI perspective, but I highly doubt they're in like that. They may be in that 70, 75 range. So where it's like right on the cusp of being a Q1. And so if they start to lose some of these games that are like Q2, Q3, does that start to hurt their resume a little bit more? Whereas if it's like in Arkansas and they're playing a Mississippi State at home, all of those are going to be Q1s. So the thought process is like, it's not as big of a quote unquote blemish. But I mean, like, I think they're fine. Graydon Harris looked phenomenal. McCarty English looked phenomenal this weekend. Like, they're not really like blasting the cover off the ball. I mean, I think they hit 5 home runs over the weekend. Kyle Morrison again is having a phenomenal start to the year, but it really feels like pitching is kind of leading the way. That you're not seeing a lot of like 8, 7+ run wins. It's a lot of like, hey, 7-6, 9-4, 6-1. Like a lot of these kind of they're getting things done, and I think that says a lot for the staff and for the team that they're capable of winning these games where they may not be dominating within those games, but they're winning pretty much every single chess move that's associated with the game. So in my opinion, no, they don't have to go spotless the rest of the year. Help me out. I feel like we've talked about this quite a bit. They don't play Coastal this year.
No.
Do they play Troy? I can't remember.
They
if
do
they
play a
Troy.
series with
They
Troy.
do. Yeah,
At
and they've
home,
got
I believe.
Louisiana.
Yeah.
But Troy isn't even. Louisiana would, from from what it appears to be, Louisiana would probably be the harder of the two.
I would agree.
I mean, maybe that's what you were referencing, Will, is like a couple of those hard series.
Yeah.
Arkansas State, I think, is really good. If they go and sweep Arkansas State, that'll be incredibly impressive. Now, again, it's not like they're going to be 10,000 people in Jonesboro, but you're still going to have an Arkansas State program that sees an opportunity to kind of assert itself in the Sun Belt where previously they kind of haven't. And so I think they've done enough in the non-con to show that like they're for real. And now I think they probably want to show that in this first weekend versus what every pundit is saying a for real team in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, I mean, everybody unanimously pretty much has them in the top 10, at least top 15 in all their polls. I mean,
yeah,
it's the team that's performed, and they beat good teams. They've done the little things that we've asked them to do. They've gone out and played in those, early season tournaments. They've dominated in those. They've played really good opponents. I mean, they're doing all the things that they're supposed to do. They're winning their midweeks. Like, yeah, they dropped one to Nichols, but they beat some really good teams in their midweeks so far. So I tip the cap to him. What Ostrander's doing there at Southern Miss, I mean, he's just on his way to another 40-win season, which is just crazy to think about there for them.
Oh, yeah. Easy.
What is happening to these SEC teams? Florida losing a weekend series. We just saw Arkansas lose a series or split a series 2-2 with Stetson. And then you're talking about another team as far as like LSU losing 4 of 5. Jason, are these teams not as good as we think they are, or are they just stumbling right now?
I think it's a combination of two things, and I'm gonna jump on my little NIL/portal bandwagon here a little bit. I think one thing that you've had with the transfer portal over the last 3 or so years now is you have teams that are kind of finding ways to win with the resources that they have, and they're going and finding. I don't want to call them like misfit toys because they're clearly not, but they're going and finding the pieces that maybe don't like shine as brightly on the shelf, and they're creating rosters that have a ton of value beyond just what you may see in like a top 25. Hey, this guy's going to be getting the most NIL. I mean, when you have 950 teams with 30, you've got basically 30,000 players D1 through D3. You're going to have a lot more than just 15 really good teams. So I think that's one piece is you're starting to see the ability for these programs to go out and get 10, 12 players in the portal and really find their gaps, fill those gaps with players who are hungry because they're basically saying like, hey, I think I can prove myself at this level and I'll get there. And I think the second thing is when you do have other programs who go and also get those 10, 12, but the question is like, who's going to be the third baseman or who's going to play right field or, hey, we can't figure out who to put at first. Like, who do we slide over there? Like, I think you start to press. I think you get these guys who like almost have these expectations that they're going and they're going to be ridiculous. Pompey is a great example. Guy who quite legitimately has first round potential, but right now he's got about a 50% K rate on the year. So you have these individuals that I think are coming in with almost these expectations of grandeur, and I think it's producing difficulty. And it's, for teams like LSU, I think they have a clear crosshair on them as a team, and then you have these players who mostly weren't a part of LSU last year. So they're trying to kind of fit that mold, come in, be that guy, maybe like a Seth Dardar, like, hey, am I going to be there in the lineup every single day? And the question is I don't know. And then you guys got like Curiel, who are in their sophomore year, who kind of like, hey, I'm an all-world player, and then they're just maybe not fully living up to that. Like they're not hitting that 1200 OPS that we're seeing in a lot of other SEC programs. So I think it's a combination of those two things. One is teams in the middle are getting better, and two, teams at the top who are trying to replicate the success they had previously are potentially having difficulty because some of those individuals aren't kind of living up to those lofty expectations.
Yeah, I think
but I
that's
wouldn't
a big
say
part
like
of it.
it's a systemic issue. I wouldn't say systemic issue. Like LSU's fine. I know everyone's like saying Chicken Little. Like they've got so much talent. Like they need to figure it out. But I mean, I wouldn't be worried about them right now if I'm LSU. Maybe if you have another couple of stinkers like this weekends, like we'll start to think about it. But no, not yet.
They got all the time to make it right this weekend. I mean, they go play Vanderbilt. Like we're going to see who they really are. I mean, it's going to come down to
talk about
SEC
stinker. Good Lord. I mean, I know they're having like pitch and injury issues, but that offense was carrying them early on, and now it's just not. It's wild.
Yeah. Will, I know we talked a little bit about this off air. Would any of these teams, if we were to start a ranking today, if there was no preseason rankings and we started them today from a fresh schedule, we looked at just what they're doing, would any of these teams be in the top 25?
Man, you're gonna give me the hardest question of the show.
I mean, to me, I don't think any of those three teams would be in my top 25 if I was looking at what they've done so far this season, their records overall, who they've played. To me, I would not have them in the top 25.
What's Arkansas's best win?
Likely not. Yeah. Oklahoma State, probably, right?
Yeah, Oklahoma State. What's LSU's? Like Indiana?
UCF.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
so,
it's
Florida's is Miami, but is Miami that good now? We look at that.
I mean, they have one of the best weekend. I mean, they only got 2 or 3. I mean, it was inexplicable UAB early on, and this weekend was a holy shit, what happened moment.
Almost lost all 3 to High Point.
Oh, they should have. They should have. High Point blew it.
Bullpen meltdown away from a sweep. And I will say, like, no Cade Curlin, no Blake Sear this weekend for the Gators offense. Yeah. They allowed 11 unearned runs across the series. 6 of the 7 unearned runs in game 1 to High Point were unearned. And then I believe 6 of the 11 to High Point in game 3 were unearned. So ton of unearned runs, and it wasn't a lot of errors. There was only 1 error in game 1. I think there was only 1 or 2 in game 3. So like, it was just High Point taking full advantage of a mistake, which is going to happen in college baseball. I mean, we know that these teams are mistake prone, and High Point took full advantage of it. And like we said, I mean, they were a bullpen meltdown away from a sweep in Gainesville, which, like, when we look back on that series in a couple of weeks, like, that win might end up being really big for the Gators, getting that getaway day, because they've got Florida State tomorrow. That's not going to be an easy one. Like, that's always an absolute war. That one's in Gainesville tomorrow. Then they kick off SEC play with South Carolina, and you just hope you win. You have to expect them to get 3 against South Carolina. And I think if you're Florida, you kind of have to.
Yeah, to feel right and turn it around and feel good about it. I mean, I think that's the kind of direction you got to go if you're a Florida Gator. Like, all of these teams have plenty of time to get right? Anytime you're in the SEC, if you start playing good baseball, you have a chance to host, right? You go up to 16, 17 wins, you're guaranteed to host. You get 15, you might be in that conversation. So I think all 3 of these teams, it's okay. Don't panic yet. But if you start to see these stumbles early, it's like Texas A&M last year. We had them ranked number 1, or most people had them ranked number 1. By the time season kicked around, by the time SEC, we're like, oh, they'll get right. And then they were 1-8. You turn around and you go, they didn't get it right. They were still struggling. Some of these teams could find themselves in that same boat. I know Florida a year ago was 2-7 for their first 3 week series. They can't really afford to do that this year if they really want to be where they think they are, and that's an Omaha caliber team. So interesting to see what happens.
One less comment on that one is RPI. Yeah. I think LSU, I think they're in the 100s right now. I think Arkansas is in the 80s. Yeah. I mean, it's almost, we start to get in that cyclical mindset of, this is now technically not even a Q1 game for Mississippi State because they're on the road of it's kind of an interesting point. It's you get this logical kind of battle of what's actually a good win or not a good win. So it'll be neat to see what happens when it comes to those RPIs for both of those teams.
Yeah, cannot wait. Let's start talking about some of these top 25 teams. So Oregon State and Kentucky do get back into our top 25. I believe both those teams deserve back in there, and I'll talk about the teams that dropped out for those teams. Oregon State winning 4 straight, looked really good. The bats came alive for them in the last game. They beat Oregon handily at Oregon, deserving to be back in there. And Kentucky looked really bad. I mean, Tyler Bell back makes the world of difference for this team. Their rotation was already good, but now you're going to say, hey, we get our superstar shortstop back. This is a very good baseball team.
Yeah, Oregon State, really, really good to see them trending in the right direction. Again, one of those teams that I wouldn't necessarily fault you for not ranking.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of midweeks matter. I'm one of those people that I'll always die on the hill that midweeks matter. And that's a good win against Oregon. And I know that like you can use it in the opposite way. Oregon wasn't throwing their dudes. It weights it differently. And I know, Jason, some of your analytics go with it's not who you played, but it's who you played when you played them, which I love that. And I think that's a really important component of it, but that's still a good win. It was nice to see them score a lot of runs against Oregon. Like, I think to me, that was the biggest thing. Not even just a win. If they went out and they lost that game 12-10, I would have been like, well, that's a step in the right direction. Like, that's
scoring runs.
For sure.
Yeah. And they did the same thing against Xavier over the weekend. Like, that means a lot for a team like Oregon State right now that has been really, really struggling on offense.
Yeah. And especially when you got a guy like
100%.
Dax Whitney, right? Like, you got Dax Whitney going on Fridays for you. You start scoring runs, you feel really good about your chance. Dax Whitney and then Ethan Kleinschmidt, all signs point to he's going to find himself. He looked a lot better on Saturday. Sunday, the bullpen was good for the Beavs. Like, and Kentucky, Jason, this is a very good Kentucky team leading into SEC play. And now they got their star back. They look like they're firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, I think last year I think we talked about this a little bit a few months ago. Maybe it was at the end of last year. Last year it felt like they lost a lot of those kind of up in the air games where it was maybe like a 6 to the 9th and it was a 1-run, 2-run game. It felt like the previous 2 years they found a way to kind of eke it out. This year it feels like, could that be kind of that same magic to where they can go in there and they can produce from a high level? Tyler Bell is who Tyler Bell is. It was really neat to see him come back game 1, hit a bomb. Because a lot of times with those shoulders, kind of those like clavicle area, it's almost like, okay, what's a swing going to look like? I always go back to, a guy like Peyton Stovall, where he came back after injury and he just had no power because he couldn't get that shoulder right whatsoever. So it was really neat to see him come back and, basically show out just like moment one. The SEC is wide open. I think the SEC is wide open. So if there's a time for them to start to get right, this is definitely that moment. So, look at Missouri, for hell's sake. I mean, they look. I mean, clearly, like, strength of schedule, it is what it is.
13 wins though.
I know, but Will, you said you have to expect 3 wins for South Carolina. South Carolina's got a lot of. Logan Sutter looked really good this weekend.
He looks like he'd be an ace. Yeah.
Logan Sutter, he had a couple bombs, right?
Sorry. The Friday night kid that threw for them. No. Lights out.
No, you're good. He was the portal guy. I can't remember where from. He was one of the big portal pickups. But yeah, thank you. It's one of those where I don't know if you have a Missouri of last year. So I think it's one of the things, if you start hot, if you start kind of in like they did a few years ago where they were 6-0, kind of just like right out the gates, it kind of makes it to where you have such a large lead because everybody's doing like a 1-2, 2-1, 1-2, and you get those 4 to 5 game leads, and it really builds a cushion later on. So I think this is one of those years where maybe a Mississippi State, maybe they get like the 20 plus wins, but this feels like a whole bunch of almost like the ACC was last year, where it was like 1 through 8. And going into that last weekend, anyone could have been that first seed. So this is, I think it's a really unique year for Kentucky. And I think the nice thing is they've got a very wide open SEC to show what they can do.
Yeah, I was thinking of Josh Gunther, who had been really good the weekend previous and struggled a little bit this weekend. But yeah, that South Carolina team has 12 wins. Missouri, 13 wins. Like, these are teams that were picked near the bottom of the SEC, and they've been playing really good baseball. You never know what you're going to get. I like that.
LSU struggled with Dartmouth, and LSU struggled. Arkansas struggled with Arkansas State and Stetson, and everybody's losing to everybody. So it's kind of one of the things like just win. And
Show up and
so
win
if you
games.
if you can go and win those first that first series, get that 2-1, it really can catapult you because I think if you have a team, like a Florida who's sitting there going like what's our season like they're fine right now clearly. I mean they dovetail between their 3 losses, they've got a lot of wins in between that. So I mean it's one of those, if you can come out and really produce when another team is still with a lot of questions, you could find yourself on the right side, week 3, week 4, and really setting yourself up for a potential regional host.
Let's talk about the 2 teams that did drop out this week. West Virginia and Miami both drop out. Miami struggles again. They lose the weekend series to Boston College, and West Virginia was outclassed and outplayed the whole weekend by Columbia. Like they got the win on Sunday, but that was an unbelievable performance there for Columbia. And Will, we talked about it a lot through text message and over the weekend. Like Miami did not look good on either side of the ball, and West Virginia maybe looked a little worse even.
Yeah, I don't know what to think of Miami. I'll be honest. Like I have no clue what this team is. This is another good week for them. They've got 5 consecutive road games. They're going to play UCF again, who I know is licking their chops trying to get that one back from earlier this year. That was a thriller in the midweek. So
jeez, yeah.
I'd be looking at some fireworks tomorrow night in that game in Orlando, and then they have to go to Durham and play Duke, who's not a pushover. Maybe not as strong as I maybe thought they were going to be coming into the season, but you got to go earn wins in conference play, and they're going to have to go to Durham and earn some wins against a team that can be really solid in Duke. And West Virginia, I mean, credit to them because they walked away with 2 wins when, quite frankly, I didn't think that they were going to walk away with more than 1. That Saturday game was down to the wire. They blew it open late.
Yeah.
I don't really know what to make of either of these teams right now. And I know it's hard. Like, right, we dropped West Virginia after winning a series. Like, that's a really hard explanation to make. But I think you got to look at what Oregon State has done. And while they have looked bad at times, they still have some good wins on their resume. And I think Kentucky, especially with Tyler Bell, is absolutely a top 25 team. And again, you can only pick 25 teams. So at the end of the day, someone's going to miss the cut. And, it's the same argument we made with UCSB. Like, UCSB is right there for me. Them and West Virginia are kind of like 26, 27 in my book, and they can't all be in. So that's kind of where I just landed with that. And West Virginia has a pretty tough week. They're going to face a really good offense in Maryland, and then they're going to go play Baylor next weekend. And Baylor looks to be a very solid team, and they have to go to Waco. So that's going to be a really big weekend for the Mountaineers. Like, I think you got to get on track. If you walk away with a Big 12 series win, you're back in the talks. You're probably back in, depending on what else happens this weekend. Miami is just a very confusing team to me. I have no clue what to make of Miami.
Yeah, it's big question marks. Yeah, go ahead, Jason. I just, it's weird that we're talking about Miami, how they were a top 10 team 2 weeks ago. Bad weekend series to Florida, lose the series now to Boston College. Like, what are they?
For me, I think Miami is just kind of a victim of circumstance. That's one of those coin flip series with Florida. Like, they had the inning, with the balk call that kind of got away from them in game 1, and they had snowball innings, and I think that's one thing that feels like it's happened with Miami the last few years. Feels like they're in every game, but then they'll have like a snowball where they'll have an error, or they'll have an issue, and the team will put up a crooked number, and then they'll find themselves behind, and they'll either lose the game, lose the series. And that's really kind of what it felt like with the Florida. I mean, it didn't feel like they were outclassed versus Florida. It felt like they were right there. They just couldn't get across the finish line both times. So I still think Miami is good. I mean, yeah, the loss to Boston College doesn't really make a lot of sense, and it makes sense to me to drop them out of the top 25. West Virginia, I think, for me, is starting pitching. Chase Myers is gone. Like, you have a guy who was 9-1 last year, most predicted to be one of the top Big 12 pitchers in the country. He's no longer on the team. And then you have Dawson Montesa, who was basically all world prior to this, and I think he gave up 5 in 4 innings. So I think he had a little bit of a fall back to earth, which was unique because I thought potentially that would happen, but I was not expecting it versus Columbia. So I think West Virginia is right there for me in that like 22 to 28 region. because I think they could be really. I think they could win the Big 12. I think they're kind of my sneaky pick to win the Big 12 this year. But I do think starting pitching is potentially a question mark for them. I like their hittings. I like Graveline. I really like Gavin Kelly. They've got a number of guys on the team that can swing the bat, but I just want to see what that rotation looks like now that they don't potentially have like one of their best pitchers.
Yeah, I'd like to see more consistency on both sides of the ball for West Virginia, and same for Miami also, honestly, because like the offense has these huge explosive innings, but they also have these bad innings on defense and these bad innings pitching wise where they just give up, way too many runs or they make an error and then it seems to compile on itself every single time. Maybe it's just bad fortune for Miami so far where they've just had a big innings blow up on them, and they might be a very good baseball team. I know that I've been very high on them. I had them as an early season pick for Omaha. I still believe in this Miami team. I think what they have pieces-wise is very good, but it's just going to be interesting to see. I mean, so we got Alabama, Coastal, Miami, West Virginia, and UCSB are like our next five that are right there on the cusp. I think any of those teams, if they have a good weekend, you could talk about having them in. UCSB's only losses are to Southern Miss. So there's an argument there that they say, hey, that's a top 10 team that we played on the road tough, and two of our only losses, and we beat them once. So, yeah, I think there's definitely arguments for any of those five teams.
There is a series this weekend that has a ton of implications, I think, for the entire season. And it's the SEC opener for Kentucky as they are going to play Alabama. Like, those are two teams right now, to me, are very, very similar teams. I think Alabama is a little bit more hot and cold, but to me, they're like essentially the same team, it feels like. It really does. Like, they feel so similar this year. And this is going to be a really big series for them. And I do want to shout out Miami on for one thing. AJ Siskar does not have a walk allowed this season through 26 innings. Like, unbelievable.
That's impressive.
That done. It's really, really impressive. He's got 26-0 on the K to walk ratio. So pretty good numbers there if you ask me. But yeah, both teams just I want to see a little bit more out of them. And this weekend is going to be really fun for Bama and Kentucky because I think that's who's going to I think the winner of that series, you say, okay, that's kind of the team that's going to sit at the back end of the top 25 next week.
Yeah, I think it's exciting to see what happens this weekend. It's going to be a blast. Let's go through our pitcher, player, and freshman of the week. So pitcher of the week, Graydon Harris from Southern Miss. Like, he just had a great weekend. 7 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 walk, 13 Ks. Solid performance for him on Saturday. Really liked what he did. Miles Upchurch, freshman from Alabama, does it again, man. He makes our list again. 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 11 Ks, 1 earned run. A big reason why that Alabama team seems to be getting really close to the top 25 again. It'd be awesome to see him against Kentucky this weekend. And then player of the week. I can't say enough about Lorenzo Carrier for Pitt. 866 average, a double, 2 triples, 5 home runs, 19 RBIs, and stole 2 bases. I think his slugging was over 2,000 for the week. Like, that's just wild. Jason, I'll start with you. Lorenzo, I mean, there was no other choice.
Well, it was interesting because I was about to say, it feels like you could have picked the 10 guys. Grayson Fitzwater for VMI was Tyson Minsky. Literally went 9 for 9 with like a couple of like this was a crazy week. But yeah, Lorenzo Carrier, you had Quentin Coates for Cincinnati, who
Coates
just
was very
absolutely
good.
What do you have, 7 home runs on the week? Like, this was one of the wilder weeks from a hitting. Max Coffer, kind of catcher, journeyman catcher. He's really good. I think he leads the country right now in OPS. So he had a phenomenal week. So it went to a very, very deserving. And I felt like every time I turned on Twitter, there was someone going like Lorenzo Carrier with another express hit. Like he had an absurd weekend. So I honestly, 100% deserved. It just felt like it was one of those things. I mean, like, even a smaller school like Mercer, Eli Stevens had a phenomenal week. Washington had Colton Power. Like, just felt like up and down. This was a phenomenal week for hitting, which it's interesting because then you look at the pitching aspect and it wasn't as good from a pitching perspective.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, the Carrier for me was playing who they played and having 19 RBIs on, like, that was a big one. Like, that you're producing for your team. You're not just hitting solo shots. You're going out there and doing what your team needs you to win. So that was the big one for me. And I had Coates also. He was on my short list, and I said it in our group chat. I said, hey, we got to take another look at this. But it did wear out to where Carrier. After looking at all the stats, I was like, that's ridiculous.
I mean, I think Quentin Coates, I mean, I was about to say only. I think he hit like 400 on the week. I mean, like, which is great, but like for a smaller sample size, a lot of these guys who are winning it, are hitting like 800 on the week. So like he went wild, but most of his hits were home runs.
Yeah, I mean, almost all of his hits were home runs.
Yeah.
Will, we talked about the pitching for a long time, and there really wasn't any other discussions about the freshmen. I mean, Angelaya maybe at Oregon, he had a good weekend against Purdue. But what Miles Upchurch is doing in the big show there is what the deal was. I mean, that's why he won it.
Yeah, he's tearing it up this year. It's super fun to watch. You always love to see these guys emerge on the scene and really just find a spot in the rotation. And, there's nothing, or we see plenty of freshmen every single year that aren't even seeing the field really, that are crazy talented. So it's really cool to see him going out and putting up the numbers he is. And Graydon Harris for Southern Miss has been as consistent as they come. He's got 30 strikeouts through 21 innings. 3-0 in 4 starts so far for Southern Miss, holding hitters to a 220 average. Like, kid is unreal. I talked about in the preseason, I wasn't sure what the rotation was going to look like for Southern Miss after losing Matthew Adams and JB Middleton. It's like, oh, well, here's Graydon Harris. He's going to be our Friday night guy, and he's going to go shove every single week. So it's really fun to see these guys that are just stepping into big shoes and really performing well.
Yeah, gotta love it here. Before we get into our top 25. Got an awesome message here from our guys over at Visual Edge. Confidence at the plate doesn't just come from taking more swings. It comes from clarity. Seeing the ball out of the hand, picking up the spin early, trusting your swinging decision, and knowing that what you saw is what you're going to hit. Visual Edge is built around training that clarity. You start with the Edge test, which measures your visual processing, tracking, and depth perception. It shows you where you stand compared to other college baseball players, and then it builds a personalized training plan for what you need the most. The training sessions are short and focused, about 15 minutes a day. That's manageable even during the season. You can do it virtually anywhere, dorm rooms, apartments, summer league housing, anywhere with a laptop or tablet. Anything bigger than a phone is perfect. No facility, no appointments. You can do it from home. This is the same vision that everybody in the MLB is starting to switch over to. Guys like Aaron Judge, Nico Horner, Tommy Edman, Key Brian Hayes, because at the highest level, even the fractions of seconds matter. Listeners can now use our code CBSHOW to get the first month free 3D glasses, free shipping, cancel anytime. Go to visualedge.com/signup and use code CBSHOW. That's visual with a Z. 15 minutes a day can change how you see the game. Train your eyes, train your brain, earn your edge. All right, boys, let's get into the top 25 here. 25, as we said before, Kentucky. They deserve to be there. Will, I'll let you speak a little bit more on this as you get into this weekend where they go down and play Alabama.
Yeah, huge weekend for them. A really big one and a really big week to get Tyler Bell back. And he seems to have not missed a beat, like Jason mentioned. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways that you can have so far is that he seems to be firing on all cylinders. So now we get a superstar matchup at shortstop this weekend between Justin LeBron and Tyler Bell.
Yep.
Going to be a really fun series. I'll be honest, Kentucky without Tyler Bell is a very fringe top 25 team for me. They weren't in ours last week. He's been out for a couple of weeks, but they haven't really done anything to be dropped out. It was just one of those things, right? This whole top 25 so far this season, a lot of the teams feel like they're just a result of their circumstance, like Miami, like how Jason mentioned. Kentucky feels like they're in that group. And there's another team later on that we'll talk about that I believe is also in that group, kind of just a beneficiary of some circumstance. This is going to be a big week for them. And guys like Tyler Cerny have really stepped up for them. He's hitting almost 350 in somewhat limited playing time, but that's a really good role player to have for what he did at Indiana. And man, I'm really excited for this series. You're going to get some really good pitching between, Miles Upchurch, who's done nothing but fantastic things. You're going to get Jelkin for Kentucky. You're also going to get Nate Harris. So this is going to be a really fun series across the board. A very underrated matchup that I feel like people haven't quite started talking about yet, because I think people are starting to hit the panic buttons on some of the top SEC teams, and they're really excited to see what they do in the start of SEC play, that everyone's kind of just forgetting about this series, where this is probably the biggest matchup in the SEC this weekend.
It's a big one. I mean, Arkansas, Mississippi State, that's a big one. But I mean, this Kentucky, Alabama is going to say a lot for those teams that finish, whether they're hosting or whether they're a 2 seed somewhere. I believe that's what we're looking at a lot with this weekend here. I can't wait. Florida down 12-24. We already talked a lot about them. We think that they're fine. That 1-2 punch seems fine on the weekends. They're going to be okay. Aiden King seems like he's going to be back for the season. They're fine there. Liam Peterson was good on Friday. The bullpen gave up. It was an aberration. I don't think High Point's a good baseball team too, guys. Like we know that's a good baseball team. They've been historically good. Don't
always a
panic
good
yet,
offense.
Florida.
Always
Yeah,
good offense.
they always do.
Braden Simpson from LSU came from High Point.
Yeah.
Always good offense.
Yeah. UTSA at 23, they're up 1. Again, they've just been beating who's in front of them, and I think that's kind of why they stay right there in the top 25. They've been a very good baseball team, doing what they're supposed to do. I don't know if they stay there without their Friday night starter again still. I mean, I got to keep harping on that just because I just wonder what's going to happen starting league play. But, again, they're right there. Oregon
offense
State.
is great.
Offense has been
offense
terrific for
great.
UTSA. I just worry about pitching eventually. I don't know if it catches up to them. I mean, they've just been using so many arms and been successful. I don't know if that stays. But again, they deserve to be there. They've been performing. They've done what they were supposed to do. Oregon State, the great week, puts them up at 22. Probably one of our bigger movers from off the board, on the board. It's hard to get into the top area there. So 22 for them. Jason, Tennessee down 2 to 21. What are they going to have to do come SEC play? I mean, now it's time to perform. Like, they haven't really been sharp, but now it's time. They haven't hit well. I mean, some of their studs went 0 for 30 over the weekend.
Yeah, you nailed it. You're like, what do they have to do? They need to hit. I think we've said it. This is our third or fourth one to do this, and we keep saying like, oh, what's going to happen with Levi Clark? What's going to happen? I think the alarm bells are now fully sounding. I mean, he's got a sub 600 OPS. I mean, we were talking about the crazy USC line where I think they were sub 500 or sub 600. I can't remember for their allowed OPS. That's what Levi Clark is doing. So I mean, and that's not really. It's in a power position like that. It's not like a shortstop or a catcher or maybe a center fielder where you're kind of saying to yourself, okay, I'm okay with the down bat because they bring X, Y, and Z. No, he's there to bring you power. And if you're missing, really going to be relying on the Browns and the Fords, and if they're not producing, then you're going to get what you got against Sunday against Wright State and go over. Now, I mean, Wright State's a really good team. I don't know if they're top 25 like they are in the RPI right now, which absolutely blows my mind. I think they're 20th RPI, but that's a good team. So I'm not sounding the alarm bells if I'm Tennessee. I'm sounding the alarm bells on Levi Clark because I think this is a substantial enough size, and he struggled a little bit down the end of the year too. I mean, he was 289 as a freshman, but I don't know if y'all remember. It was basically him and who was the Louisville shortstop transfer? Why am I forgetting his name? That went to Tennessee. It was the two of them for Tennessee, and they were just Gavin Keelan.
Oh, Gavin Keelan.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I couldn't remember. They were at the Houston tournament week 3. They went absolutely nuts. The two of those guys did, and I mean, he really faltered towards the end of the year, and now it's just kind of feels like transitioning over into this year. Sometimes it's just these teams, they start to find maybe that breaker away or the fastball into the hands, or maybe they've got a higher chase rate, and once the book is kind of out on you, a lot of these teams just keep going back to the well, and if you can't adjust, you start to get to where you're hitting 137 with 1 home run and 61 plate appearances. So that's just not expect from a position player like Levi Clark.
Yeah, and as a team, they're hitting 268, so it's not bad, but it's not probably where they thought they would.
It's for college. That's not good. I mean, you don't want to look at the Georgia Techs of the world and say oh, you need to be hitting over 400 as a team. But you look at the average SEC team. I mean, the average SEC OPS right now is about 950, and I think they're 850. So they're in that 10th range, 10, 11 range in the SEC OPS, which is wild for a Tennessee team that plays at a bounce house, and almost all of their games have been at home. So I'm not sounding the alarm bells if I'm Tennessee. You got a ton of talent. But I do think there are pieces that you're getting there and saying, okay, well, if your role was to hit and you're not hitting, at what point do we look for someone else to fill that role?
Yeah, and there's been some guys on the bench that are hitting pretty good. Those guys might get some opportunities now. We're going to see. I mean, I hope for Levi's sake that he turns around and he starts hitting the ball, but right now there looks like ton of swing right now. 20, NC State, down 6. Will, Yeah, they had a bad loss on Friday, but they also had their starting pitchers scratched right like before the game there, and they knew that they didn't want to kind of go out there. They said, hey, we're going to use bullpen and go normal Saturday, Sunday. They struggled a little bit, but then the offense came through for them on both those days. Not really necessary, but talk to me a little bit about what NC State's doing. I know maybe we had them way too high early. I think that anywhere from that 20 to 15 range is fair for this team.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head right there. A good midweek win against Coastal. Like that's never going to be an easy midweek team to play. I still don't know what this team is. Like that's why I feel like this 20 range is really fair for them, because they still have yet to really be challenged. And they're going to play Boston College this weekend, who looked really scrappy last weekend and took advantage of some things from Miami. So I'll be curious if they can put them away for 3 games. But I said it last week on Monday. I really am going to start evaluating NC State on March 20th when they play Florida State. Like, I think that's the first real test. That's when we get to figure out what this team is, because right now they're putting up ridiculous numbers, but I don't really know what they are yet. And again, I'm never going to punish a team for doing what they're supposed to do. They're beating the teams that are in front of them, like we always talk about. But we're at the point in the season where teams start to be challenged, and I think we have to start evaluating it based on that. And they just quite frankly haven't been yet. But you can't bounce them out for it, right? Like, they're not – I think it's hard to explain in a way that they're not dropping 6 spots because they lost 1 game on Friday without their starter that got scratched an hour before the game. Yeah. I think it's just a matter of other teams are winning against better competition, and it's kind of where they're falling, and I think that's where they should be.
Yeah, and it gives them opportunity. I mean, honestly, where they're at, if they win, all of these teams, right? If they win and show us what they are during league play, they're going to jump. They're going to skyrocket to the top of this top 25. Like, people that are freaking out because of this poll and saying, oh man, they shouldn't have dropped. They lost Friday, but they lost and other teams won. Like, that's kind of how these things work out. We watch a ton of games. I know that you guys watch just as many as I do. And I think I logged like 95 games this weekend. So like, people that are like, oh, you guys don't, like, you got to go out there and watch the games. And if you're not getting eyes on them and you're just scoreboard watching, you're also seeing differently. That NC State team on Friday didn't look sharp offensively. They didn't really come out and look like a top 25 team. Now they did on Saturday, Sunday. Kudos to them. But again, it wasn't super sharp on either one of those days. They just hit better. But I do think that this NC State team deserves to be where they're at. 20 is a good spot for them. 19, we got Oregon. They dropped 2. They did lose to Purdue and Oregon State. Oregon State loss was midweek again. It depends on how you want to take that. But the loss Purdue 2-1, that was a very good ball game. And Purdue's tough at home. They've been historically pretty good. This is a good Purdue team that's won a lot of games already this season. I don't think it's a huge loss for Oregon on the road. Like, they would have loved to sweep and stayed in that. But again, they get Indiana at home this weekend. I will be there live for all you Duck fans. I'll be down there for Saturday and Sunday. So excited for that one. Good. Get my first look at a team here in the Oregon Ducks. 18, Texas A&M up 2. Jason, this team has looked the part, and then they've also not looked the part. What are we going to get opening weekend of SEC?
I don't know. My assumption is we're going to get home runs, but I think the big question mark that will lead them to where they are as a team will be, what do they get from Sadeo?
Yeah.
If they're good, what do they get from Moss? If they think they're going to be good, for me, kind of pitching, they're going to hit, and they're going to hit well. And so if they can keep their opponents to 5 earned runs a game, a 5 ERA, which it's below average,
yeah,
they're going to be more than fine. So I think really the only thing I'm really looking for is, can their starters get to the 5th? Because it feels like that's really where a lot of these teams are struggling right now, is they're coming out and they're walking guys, or they're just having compound innings and they're struggling to get into the really past that 4th inning. If they can get both of their starters to the 5th, I think they're going to be perfectly fine. So for me, I'm not really terribly interested to see like, oh, what was their batting average for that? Because regardless of even if they have a bad week from a hitting perspective, I know that they've got goons over there. But for me, it's going to be, how do they do from a pitching perspective? If they can segue some of the success that they're having from the mound into the SEC, then look out for A&M, because I think A&M's potentially quite underrated.
Yeah, they were my sleeper pick during our SEC preview. I said, hey, they're the team that could go out and surprise people and be what Texas was last year and go win the conference in the regular season and be that good. With if the pitching stays like it has, Jason, I believe in them. And the offense has been the skeptical one, but this weekend they look better. I think that they're fine. I'm with you. I think up to them at 18 seems fair to where they are at this point in the season. Arkansas down 1 at 17. We already talked about them. They did lose today also to Stetson. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. I mean, maybe they were looking forward to this Mississippi State series. I mean, it's going to be a tremendous series, but the strikeouts we've talked about a ton. Again, they had 10 more strikeouts today offensively. The swing and miss is bad. The Oregon State transfer, James Kramer, didn't have his best stuff, didn't even get an out in the first inning against Stetson today. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Arkansas can do moving forward, especially in SEC play. TCU at 16 down one.
I think they hit one home run the entire week.
It's just not. It's not.
There. I was adding on to what you're saying. I think they hit one home run the entire week. So not only are they not pitching phenomenally, as you said with the Kramer, they no power right now, none. So they've got a lot of holes. Frankly, I wouldn't have them ranked right now if I were y'all. And I know that goes back to our original conversation. Is like, would you have these guys ranked? And that would be a no for me on this one.
I was really tough on my 25, and I got them at 25. And then after today's loss, I was like, God, I should have just dropped them out. I could have done the thing, dropped them out on my personal top 25, but I felt like they were just a slight edge better than what we saw from Miami and West Virginia and those teams that were right on the cusp. So, and then they proved me wrong. So by losing on Monday. So, whatever. We're going to see more when they play SEC ball. Number 16, TCU down 1. They did drop 1 to Tulane, a very, very good Tulane team. And also, anytime we talked about this, doubleheaders are hard to sweep anyway. And they were shortened games because they were trying to get 2 of those games in. TCU looks like they're coming back to life. Braswell looked really good on Friday. Got to be good signs for them, right?
Yeah, definitely good signs. You walk off on the back half of the doubleheader. That's really big because that could have easily been a series loss at home, which would be a really tough comeback for them based on some of the injuries they've had. And they've got Kansas this week, which I know Kansas is not Kansas of last year, but they're still not a pushover. So that's going to be a really big series for them kicking off conference play. Brassfield looked really good this weekend. I mean, you still have Stroh-Snyder and Brunson playing ridiculously good baseball, and you got to be fired up about that. But man, like, there's some guys that I still think are waiting to get going. Like Rob Liddington was a guy I talked about this offseason, had a monster year last year in a mid-major. Waiting for him to really put the pedal to the metal in the power department. He's got 2 home runs right now. I think that can easily be 15 when it's all said and done. It's just a matter of if it happens. If you told me Cole Kramer was going to be 3rd on the team in average at this point, I would have been kind of shaky on that. Nothing against Cole. He's a fantastic player, but he is always slotted into this team as like a role player toward the bottom of the lineup. Like he's hit leadoff a lot for them. Lucas Franco has really cooled off despite still showing unbelievable flashes. We know the talent's there, but again, the kid's 18. So there's going to be some growing pains there. This feels like a good spot for them despite the record, despite some of the losses. Maybe a tad too high, in my opinion. Even as a biased TCU watcher, I even think this might be a tad high. This is going to be a really big weekend for them. This is kind of like a show me weekend. Can you go out and beat a team that feels like they're kind of on an even playing field right now, like Kansas and TCU, both higher expectations than what they've performed so far. And again, neither team is a pushover, so this is going to be a really fun series.
Absolutely. I can't wait. I think it's a terrific series this weekend to open up Big 12 play for both those teams. Again, Kansas looked good in 2 games this weekend, then lost the third one 13-2 against St. Thomas. Like, just some weird games. So interesting to see what happens going on this weekend. Wake Forest sweeps Stanford. They're up 6, Jason. This Wake Forest team now is undefeated since that Houston loss. They've looked the part. They've looked good they've won games both ways. They had to score runs against Stanford in the Sunday game. They did it with pitching in the Friday game. Like they seem to be really good.
Yeah, no, I think they're doing great. Pitching has started coming a little bit stronger. It was struggling at the beginning of the year. It was kind of the thought process of like, hey, you bring in a new pitching coach, like Moose is gone. Like, what does that look like? Maybe they're starting to get more of a feel for it, getting back into that pitching lab and kind of seeing what they can create in the lab, so to speak. I'm really high on Wake Forest. I don't know where I would have them in my ACC pecking order, but I feel like they'd be pretty high. This feels about right, if maybe not even a little bit like too low for Wake Forest. I think this is one of those things like if they were maybe higher ranked at the beginning, or it almost feels like they weren't talked about enough. And if it's like, well, if it was flipped inverse, it's like, hey, if you would have switched LSU and Wake Forest preseason rankings, like where would Wake Forest be right now? So I think they're about where I would have them. But I really do like the K. Lewis has looked great. Like honestly, like they're looking good.
Yeah, after that first weekend, I was like, okay, I want to see more from Lewis. I want to see more from Morningstar. I want to see these stars of this team
Yeah.
shine, and they did. Like they have now. Now it looks really good, and they're only going to keep getting better as these young arms for them continue to develop and get more innings. I think that they're heading the right direction. And
Really
ACC
big
's
week for them, by the way. This is a huge week for Wake Forest. I have kind of
Who did they
placed
play?
them.
Honestly, I don't know.
They've got Coastal in the midweek
Coastal.
and then Florida State on the weekend.
Yeah,
Florida State.
Yeah, so
good weekend.
I've kind of lumped them into the NC State bucket. Like they, quite frankly, like the schedule hasn't been world beaters for Wake Forest.
Yeah.
The first weekend was solid. Like that's a solid Houston team, and they've won 15 straight. Like always something they said for that. I've kind of lumped them into that. Like I'm ready to see them play some truly formidable opponents, and that's what we're going to get this week. So really excited for Wake baseball. I think this is going to be a really fun weekend.
You could say the same for just about every team in the Carolinas right now.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of want to see everybody in the Carolinas play somebody, and we're going to see it starting this weekend. So very, very excited for that. LSU, we talked about them down 10-14 for us. Could have been lower. I don't think you go much higher than where they are right now, especially with the way that they're playing baseball. I'm pretty sure anybody would agree with you. Like, yes, they are still an Omaha caliber team. So don't freak out, people. But this is where they deserve to be, if not lower. I mean, this is where they've played themselves to. So I think that this is a fair rating for them. UNC, we dropped down 5 down to 13. They did end up winning the Sunday game there, but that could have gone a lot of different ways for UNC. But again, or the second half of the Saturday game. But again, I think that they're going to be fine. They're going to find themselves. They're very good in rotation. No worries there. USC, we talked about them as well. Up 11, big jump for them from 23 up to 12 in our poll. Again, they remain undefeated. They keep beating who's in front of them. They've played quality opponents. They've done what we've asked them to do in the midweeks, and they've beat those teams. Having a home ballpark has got to be feeling pretty good for them. And they beat Illinois, who was on a 5-game win streak with huge offense going in there. So got to be happy for USC. Oklahoma up 2. Will this Oklahoma team, like the offense has cooled off. The pitching has still been pretty good, but it feels like maybe they're slowing down a little bit before heading into SEC play.
Yeah, still a really solid couple of weeks out of them. I mean, you beat Dallas Baptist 2-0, which is a weird game because if you told me ahead of time that game was going to be 2-0, I would have said there's absolutely no way. Like this is going to be a fireworks show. There's going to be tons of runs in this one. You get the series win against Santa Clara. They lead off with Texas A&M at home. Like that's a really big series. And we've seen the flashes of Oklahoma, right? We saw it in that first weekend when they really just beat the brakes off of everybody they played. And at the time, TCU, a fully healthy TCU team that looked all world through that first weekend, beat up on Texas Tech, beat up on Oklahoma State. They've looked very solid to this point, and I don't know if you can really knock them anywhere, but this is a really big series for them. Like I think this is another test on the ladder for them, and I don't have a ton to say on them. Like they've been really solid. Like they've done what they need to do. They've beaten the quality opponents that they had scheduled, and I think that's always a plus.
I think they have sneakily one of the best pitching staffs in the country with
very
LJ
good.
and Cam. And I think part of it is it feels like they've just been a little bit out of the spotlight ever since weekend 1, which it's kind of weird to say. A hiccup here or there, but it's like, they for me, we were talking about the dark horse of the Big 12 being West Virginia. For me, the dark horse of the SEC is Oklahoma, and I don't even know if you can call them a dark horse at 11, but I just don't know if many would have slotted them for that like top 3 range. They feel like a top 3 SEC team for me this year. So I'm really liking this Oklahoma team.
Skip Johnson's always been a terrific pitching coach. He's taken over that same role as a head coach. He's done really good with these guys. And Cam Johnson, the steps between last year and this year are very noticeable, and it's just terrific what he's been able to do on that Friday night role for them. So I like to see him. I'm excited for this weekend against Texas A&M. It's going to show me a lot about both of those squads and seeing if Texas A&M offense can hit good pitching and if Oklahoma's offense can pick it back up to where they were at the start of this season and really get after that Texas A&M pitching. So I'm very excited for that one. Let's jump into the top 10 here, fellas. Virginia, number 10, up 12 spots. Jason, some polls did not even have them ranked. We already had them ranked. And jumping 10 or 12 spots, it feels right for how well they played this weekend. Yeah, they did lose one, but going into Chapel Hill is never easy to win, especially taking the series.
Taking the series and then game 3 going to 12 against the top 10. Yeah, you're absolutely needed to jump. This is going to be a unique week for them. I think Virginia Tech is better than their record is. I think Virginia Tech was probably a part of the best round robin tournament of the year of Arlington in week 3. I mean, that's just unfortunate that you go up against some goons and you lose. Like, that is what it is. I think Virginia Tech is better than their record. So I think this will be, it's a rivalry series, clearly Virginia Tech. If they're able to piggyback off of their success, I think it'll show that they're for real. For me, I kind of feel like they're in that what are they phase. I think last weekend it's sort of like, okay, like clearly they've got a ton of talent. But now the question is like, are they able to take that and then manifest it into a second weekend in a row and show that, hey, this wasn't just us getting, hyped up for a good North Carolina team. This is who we are. William and Mary's a sneaky midweek game. It feels like you could say that for pretty much any team in D1 baseball right now, like a sneaky midweek. But I really like the William and Mary team. So if they're able to go 3-1, 4-0 on this week, I think they've kind of pretty much cemented themselves in that kind of 12 to 8 range would be my recommend. Would be our way to think.
And Virginia Tech took a game from a top 5 team in Georgia Tech, like at Georgia Tech. Like, that's not easy to do.
Virginia Tech is good. Virginia Tech is a lot better than their record. Again, back-to-back weekends where they played A&M, Tennessee, and Mississippi State, and then they played Georgia Tech. Like, that's a hard 6-game weekend stretch. Yeah.
It's a lot of offense coming at you. I think their pitching staff, like you said, I think it's better than where it was than it has shown this year. And I think that they've had some, flashes, especially the rotation has been really good. And I expect that kind of this weekend against Virginia. It'll be fun to see that one. Clemson up 2 to number 9 for us. Again, just taking care of business, doing the things that they're supposed to do, going out and winning baseball games. And they even rested Knack this weekend. He didn't even throw on Friday for them, just getting ready for ACC play. Excited for that. I think, that was another one of those precautionary things where they just, hey, not feeling it. We're going to make sure we take care of you and get you ready for ACC play. Yeah. Will, Florida State up 4 to number 8, and this one probably had the most buzz about teams we've raised into our top 10 where people had question marks. I have them as my national champion. They were my preseason national champion. I think that this Florida State team is showing all the pieces for me, but I want you to tell me, why people have these question marks. Is it because of the inconsistency?
Yeah, they're a really fascinating case this year, and there's a lot of them. Like, there's a lot of teams this year that I think you could have anywhere. Like, Florida State has been ranked anywhere from us at 8 all the way down to 20 or 21, I believe. I think they are closer to 10 than they are 25. Yeah. 8 maybe a tad high, but they have a really good game against Auburn that Auburn just plugged away and walked out with a win in that Amagi Bank week 2, I believe that was. Mm-hmm. And then they beat Michigan in that Friday night game, which was a really big win. Always beating Michigan on a Friday night, especially Michigan was playing their best baseball of the year so far. So you beat a really hot Michigan team at that point. They manhandled Northern Kentucky this weekend, which is a solid mid-major program. But this is a really big week for them. I talked about it on the Wake Forest side. It's equally as big for Florida State. This is this is their first true test. That's kind of just at the point in the year that we're at. Like, we get to see who teams really are. They got Florida in the midweek in Gainesville, and then they've got Wake Forest in Winston-Salem. So a really tough road stretch over the next 6 days, and it's not going to get any easier from this point. So big weekend for them, big week for them, but I've seen some really encouraging pieces. Wes Mendez has been unbelievable so far. He's got a sub-1 ERA. Trey Beard has looked really sharp, and after missing, I believe, the first 2 weeks of the season, he looks back and what he can do. John Abraham out of the bullpen has been unreal for them. So they've have some really good pieces on the pitching staff. Miles Bailey has above 800 slugging percentage, not OPS, slugging percentage.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah, that's pretty solid with 17
solid.
RBI. And Noah Sheffield has over 20 RBI at this point in the season. So they've got some guys that can really swing it, as they always do. I mean, this lineup is loaded. They're hitting 310 as a team, over a 500 slug as a team. So I think this is going to be a really fun weekend where it seems like Wake Forest pitching is a huge strength of theirs, and Florida State seems to be very, very balanced. Again, I don't know if they're necessarily the 8th best team in the country at this moment, but due to some circumstance, like, I think this is a fair spot to have them. Again, I think they're closer to 10 than they are 25. That's what I would say on Florida State at this point.
I think that's probably fair. I mean, really, you look at their schedule, their biggest test was Arlington, and they went 1-2 in that test.
Yeah.
So, but it's hard to, fault them for going 1-2 in a test when you could say that for 2/3 of the teams in the top 25. So I think you're about right. I would say, I maybe lean them more towards like the 15 range, but I wouldn't fault anyone for having them in this section. I mean, their hitting is good, but it feels like in pockets. And so for me, I mean, that was their struggle in Arlington. They really struggled to hit in Arlington. So are they able to do it in a big week? And that's for me, this is going to be the litmus test for me for Florida State this weekend.
Yeah, and for me, it's the consistency. I love this team. I think that they have the potential to be an Omaha team for sure. One of those teams that's a national title contender, but it's the consistency. And we saw it in Arlington. They had the big collision, and that kind of emotionally drained this team, it felt like.
Yeah.
And then they struggled the rest of the weekend after coming off that first big Friday night win against Michigan. Again, we'll see what happens. I think that this is a huge week. 4 really big games for Florida State this week. Top 10. Southern Miss up 2 to number 7. We talked about them. They're a top 10 team. They deserve to be here. They've shown everything that we need to see from them.
You better do it, or you will get hellfire from their fans. So make sure to do it.
Yeah. Pete Taylor's tremendous ballpark, man. If you're not having the opportunity, I'm trying to find flights to be able to get there from the Pacific Northwest because I want to go watch a game down there so bad. And I can't wait to go down there and visit. Hopefully we get down there at some point this season. Number 6, Georgia. Jason, this team continues, and they're supposed to be getting Kenny Ishikawa back any moment.
And yeah, they may be getting Ishikawa back, but Viggy now looks like, the Big Ten pitcher that we saw last year, winning the SEC pitcher of the week. This team is absurdly loaded. I hate to say underrated at 6. Honestly, this is probably right. I don't know if they've done enough on paper to say that they should be higher, even though a lot of people really haven't, except feels like besides UCLA. They're good. That would probably be they have, I think they're leading the country in OPS as a team at like 1,100. 1,100 as a
1,200.
1,200. Thank you. I knew it was it wasn't above. So we were just talking about, the struggles associated with, I think we were saying LSU, or I can't remember, where their team OPS was like an 800, where it was below. Oh, it was Tennessee. It was Tennessee. We were talking about it was below kind of that median level. I mean, that's 50% higher. Like, that's absolutely nuts as a team. I don't think Arkansas has a guy on their team that has a 1,200 OPS. So what they're doing right now as a collective unit is pretty wild. So they're right where they should be. That's probably about the best way for me to put it. They've got an interesting weekend with coming up with Tennessee. So So I mean, I want to say they should try to handle them. I'm expecting.
I did put those guys next to each other for today's purpose on the show. So just
I feel like if you're Georgia at home, and I know we've already talked about like home field, blah 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 blah. You want to at least take 2 or 3 here, but you've also got a Tennessee team that's we talked about 10-15 minutes ago how they're sliding. I think this is going to be one of those things. Is like, which direction continues? Does Georgia kind of continue their upward trend, or does Tennessee, continue their downward trend, or like which one goes? which one stops. So I'm thinking 2-1 Georgia, but this is definitely not one that I would bet, so to speak, because it feels like Coons could go in there and be a freak.
Yeah.
And then it's one of the, and it's interesting, like right field is tiny right there in Foley. Left field is massive, but it feels like everybody hits it into the trees, whichever region they're hitting it. So I expect high numbers. And so, but if you've got like a Coons and a Vigu, and I don't know if Ishikawa is going to go, but you've also Volchko's been pretty good this year.
Solid.
Yeah. So I don't know what this is going to look like, but something tells me there's going to be a lot of crooked numbers.
Here's the thing for me. I think the only thing that would shock me is if Georgia got swept. If Tennessee goes in there and sweeps Georgia, I think that's the one thing that would shock me.
Yeah.
If it's the other direction, if Georgia sweeps Tennessee, I don't know if that would shock me. I mean, it'd be probably kind of telling us where we're at the season. 2-1, either direction. I'm fine with that. But if Tennessee were to go sweep Georgia, that would surprise me. Will, you want to add a little bit more Georgia?
Yeah. Like we said, a 1,200 OPS as a team, above 1,200 OPS, not rounding. I'm actually rounding down there. They have 4 guys with over 8 home runs 4 weeks into the season. Daniel Jackson has 14. He's also 10 for 10 on stolen bases. Yeah, he leads college baseball.
That's
also
crazy.
10 for 10 on stolen bases. They have guys on the bench that are posting above 1 OPSs that aren't like consistent players. Like you have Ryan Wynn with an 1,100, Jordy Oriak with an above 1,100. This team is just absolutely loaded. But like Jason said, like Tegan Coons has been really impressive so far. Landon Mack has been really solid. You have a guy like, is it Brady Frederickson?
Blanco going to be going Sunday probably.
And Frederick that's coming out of the bullpen.
Out of the bullpen. Yeah. Like that kid is disgusting. I saw him in Arlington. Like that kid has nasty stuff. And this is going to be, I think this is a better series than maybe it's leading on to be, given some of Tennessee's on paper struggles. But Georgia looks every bit of the part. So this is a big series for them to go win a series at home in Athens against a Tennessee team that feels like you can put them away early.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one here. Auburn up 2 to number 5. Really good spot for them. I think that they've been performing once they get fully healthy. Jake Marciano has been so good for them on Friday nights. If that continues into SEC play, they're a very dangerous team, especially Rembert getting healthy, this offense getting healthy. Watch out. This is a very, very talented and highly touted offense for Auburn, matched with what the pitching staff has been for Butch Thompson. They deserve to be right here, in my opinion. I don't think – I mean, I know, Jason, we talked about Jake Marciano. He's every bit of a Friday night ace.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. Like, you think about what he would be for Virginia Tech this year because he's coming over from – I mean, him and Waylon, they've hit on a number of really good portal players. So – I mean, they've clearly got Rembert, who's coming out of the high school. I think he's true sophomore this year, so he's been great for them. So they've done a really good job of building in pieces, not just through the portal, but also homegrown, so to speak. I don't know what to think of Auburn. Clear, they're a top 5 team. I think I would say that, but right now I don't know. I don't know if that's because they went in and they dominated the Arlington series, and I clearly giving them kudos for that. But I don't know where Auburn is for me, frankly. I really, really like them, but I think I'd have to see a little bit more of them. This will be a big weekend for me for them. I mean, it's the first weekend for everyone in the SEC to kind of put up or shut up. Everything is kind of this logical thought process. Well, A beat B, B beat C, therefore A can beat C. I think it's something that we can see like, okay, well, that's great to like think of what Tennessee and Georgia can do on paper. What can Auburn do this weekend in reality? So this is probably going to be one of the weekend series I'm going to be watching the closest, because when we're looking at a top 25, you're saying this is like an Omaha favorite right now. And I don't like, for me, I don't know why I can't wrap my head around that right now, but I want to. I've seen them live once and they were really good, but I didn't feel like I walked out of that being like, oh my gosh, like they were head and shoulders above Florida State, or oh my gosh, they were head and shoulders above. I think it was Nebraska was also in that weekend. So it didn't really feel like I came out of it saying like that's a top 8 team. but on paper, they absolutely are.
And just very solid. I mean, that's a Butch Thompson way. Like solid on every play, good defense, smart base running, get the timely hits when you need them. They've been clutch. I mean, I want to see more of, obviously, in the SEC play. I think if this team wins 17, 18 games in SEC play, we're talking about them easily as a top 8 national seed with how well they've started the season. I like where they're heading in this direction. Georgia Tech down 1. Down 1 just because of circumstance, really. I mean, the 3 teams above them have just been playing better, but there's no team in the country hitting better than Georgia Tech as a team, hitting over 400.
Yeah, they have been unbelievable on offense. And this weekend is the big test for me because last year it felt like Georgia Tech's biggest issue was that the pitching wasn't incredible against top competition. And now you're facing a Clemson team that most people have in the top 15. Whether or not you believe that offense is world beat is irrelevant. This is like a really big test for them, and can pitching continue to do what it's done so far against those much better teams. And I felt like that was the issue.
Yeah, I'm excited for this Georgia Tech team. I think offensively and pitching wise, they've been what we wanted them to be, and they've really stepped up.
What had them struggle in some ACC games.
Oh, do we get him back? I think we lost Will.
I think I'm back.
Oh, are you back?
Oh, I thought it was just me. I've been struggling with my Wi-Fi pretty much this whole time.
Yeah,
and when I heard Will chopping up, I was like, God damn it! Like there goes my internet again. Yeah.
It's because he finally got nice weather up there.
I know. It's really throwing it off, but I'm really just interested to see the pitching. I mean, this is a really good Georgia Tech team. The hitting is always going to play. I think it's going to play against literally anybody in the country. I have no doubts about that. How is the pitching going to hold up against the top tier teams? That was the issue last year. Is that ironed out this year? On paper, it looks like it should be, but that's really what I'm looking for this weekend.
Yeah, both of those teams could find them way into the top 5 this weekend, right? Like if Clemson figures that away, wins that series, we're talking about them. Georgia Tech wins, they're obviously staying in the top 5. I mean, that's how good this series is to open up. That's a top 10 matchup for us. Number 4 versus number 9. Like that's great baseball. I cannot wait for that one. Number 3, Mississippi State. Again, show me series, Jason. They get Arkansas. Yep. This is going to be a big one for them. They have so much talent. We saw what they did against really good talent in UCLA. They were, one hit away, one strikeout. Like they're one pitch away basically from winning that weekend.
So I've watched both of these teams a lot. I would be amazed if it's not 2-1 or 3-0 Mississippi State. I think Mississippi State is really cooking right now. I think Arkansas has a lot of holes right now. Arkansas went 2-2 versus Stetson, and one of those was run rule. The fourth one, like it was pretty. I mean, they're not very good right now, and I don't think that's because a lot of these times it's like, oh, we're trying out pieces, we're trying to see. They almost feel like spaghetti against a wall mode, where it's just like what sticks. I think Mississippi State's the complete opposite. I think everything's sticking. And they've got guys on the bench who are like, let me in, I'll hit my pinch hit home run in Arlington for you. So you never want to play crystal ball because you'll always be wrong. I saw some people who were like, easy win, Wright State over Tennessee. And then Tennessee went and lost 0-6. So you never want to like say they're ever for sure things, but for me, this feels like two programs kind of going in opposite directions right now, and it's in Fayetteville, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's gonna be a wild environment, and I think Arkansas is really gonna want to show that hey, we're not the 2-2 versus Stetson team. We're not a 15 strikeout per game team. It feels like they are right now. They're gonna try to put their best foot forward, and they've got a lot of talent, but I do think Mississippi State's also probably thinking the exact same thing. They're like, hey, we're wanting to show who we are. We felt like we gave up one in Arlington. Let's go and show that we're a top 2 team in the country.
Yeah. Yeah, and it won't surprise me, if they go in there. If they go and dominate, they go 3-0, that would maybe surprise me. I think that Arkansas is good enough talented to get one, but Mississippi State's really good. It feels like Brian O'Connor right now has that Staples easy button that he kind of hits with whoever he brings off the bench, and they just perform. So it's pretty crazy to me.
Arkansas's pitching right now is pretty difficult. Gackle, I don't think he made it out of the fourth versus Stetson. Dietz looked really good. But Fisher got lit up. DeKramer, as you talked about, didn't get an out.
Yeah.
I mean, their pitching right now doesn't look phenomenal, and they're about to go up against one of the best hitting teams in the country. So really big step up in competition for Stetson's a good team, but a really big step up in competition. Right when I think Arkansas is reeling a little bit, and right where I think Mississippi State's cooking with gas, so to speak.
And then our last two teams, Texas at 2, UCLA at 1. Again, I said you go either way. I did vote it this way. I actually voted this exact top 7. I think that this is fair for these teams. I think that this is where they should be. I think UCLA is the number 1 team. Will, I'll let you start, and then I'll go over to Jason for these two. Texas could stay there. I mean, if they go undefeated throughout this weekend, maybe. But UCLA still, to me, is the best team.
Yeah, I'd agree. And they're the most battle-tested team of really anybody in the country to this point, at least with the results on paper, right? I think they have the most quality wins of anybody in the country, and that's a huge, stamp on the resume. This is a good weekend for them, too. They easily could have dropped that Sunday game. You take it to Ohio State on Friday and Saturday, and you're down early against Ohio State, and you're down late against Ohio State, and then Dean West comes up with a huge bases-clearing double. A guy that I've been kind of waiting to get going with the bat. He's been pretty good getting on for the most part, but especially out of the leadoff spot, I'd like to see him, hit the ball a little bit harder, find ways on a little bit more. This is a big week for them, though. They got Irvine on Tuesday, and then they have Michigan next weekend. So you get Tate Carey on Friday. They're going to be at home. Michigan seems to be reeling a little bit. This is not Michigan of week 1. But nonetheless, you still got to go out and you got to win the games in front of you, and that's what UCLA has to do this weekend. But I really can't say enough good things about this team and what they've been able to do so far. The pitching has been really good. Redeman has been really, really good. Michael Barnett has been super consistent. I think that's just kind of his game. It's kind of like when you looked at Coastal's rotation last year and you had Riley Eichhoff on Sundays. Michael Barnett kind of is that to me. I know he's not a Sunday guy, but it's like, what you're going to get every time he goes out there. Now he's not going to go out and strike out 18 in 5 innings, but not that that's even possible, but he's not going to go out and just strike everybody out, but he's going to get a lot of outs. He's going to pitch to a lot of contact, and he's going to fill up the zone. And he's a really, really consistent pitcher. He's really fun to watch. It's a very different style of pitching than I think you're used to seeing, especially if you watch a lot of SEC ball. He's got the bowling ball sinker that he throws that is barely above 90 miles an hour. He averages 89 this year, and it's very consistent. He's got good stuff, really fun to watch. Wyland Moss has been really good for them. And then, of course, the offense has been very, very solid. This is going to be a good week for UCLA. But, again, we're at the part of the schedule in UCLA where I feel like we kind of know what they are, and now they just got to go out and kind of take care of business until they get Oregon and USC.
Yep. I mean, now at this point, they just got to keep winning. Jason, at what point is it we wait for a UCLA stumble, or is it we wait to see if Texas continues to stay undefeated in SEC play? The flip-flopping really doesn't seem like it's going to happen as long as both these teams take care of business.
Yeah, I feel like I've made a lot of hot takes on this. This one doesn't feel like too much of a hot take. I don't see UCLA giving up the number 1 spot for the rest of the year. I think they're talented enough, and I think their schedule sets up to where they'll be set. Now, I know, again, that's the rat poison and whatever, and there's always the alternative. And, I get it, but I think you're kind of splitting hairs when you get up to this point. I think the difficulty has been 4 through 25. It feels like in the top 25. The top 3 does not feel difficult. It really doesn't.
No.
4 through 25 feels hard, but I think you could say Mississippi State, you could say UCLA, you could say, Texas, whomever you would want to say. I would agree with you. I think they all 3. I mean, I would even lump Georgia into that. I know we have Georgia Tech and Auburn. I would even lump Georgia into that. I think you would have a strong argument for any of those. But when it comes to the top two, for me, close your eyes, flip a coin, and I'd agree with you. But there's no reason to drop UCLA based upon what they've done or what they are doing, because what they are doing is very impressive. So in a college season where it feels like everyone is slipping up, they're seeming like they're doing a really good job of not doing so.
Yeah, I like where both these teams are, honestly, and I
Yep.
think that they're both very talented. I think any of these top 6 teams that you just mentioned, like they could be the number 1 team in the nation that weekend, and we're probably going to see that throughout the season. I don't think anybody jumps UCLA for me unless UCLA were to lose a whole, like get swept somehow. That would be like the one telling sign for me, is if they got swept in any of these series, especially before the Oregon or USC series, like that would be a question mark. But other than that, I think that they should take care of business to be number 1.
Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Let's say Texas sweeps and UCLA only goes 2-1. Like at that point, like almost becomes like a strength of schedule battle.
Yeah.
Like almost when it's like, what have you done for me lately? Yeah, I don't want to say like UCLA needs to sweep for the remainder of time, but it just doesn't feel as though a 2-1 is going to be as strong for them.
Yeah.
I mean, as they had this last series. Who did they sweep? Oh my gosh, the Sunday game was really close.
Ohio State.
Ohio State.
Yeah, they came back and won Ohio State on Sunday, and so like if they were to lose that game, like I think we would almost be having like kind of a different feel to it. Like I still don't think you would drop them. Like they'd have won the series, but it's kind of one of those like you don't want to have multiple of those 2-1s in a row, and I think that's kind of that's a representation of their schedule, unfortunately, that they're probably going to have to sweep more than a normal team would to keep that top spot.
And I'll be clear, I don't think Texas goes undefeated for much longer. I think that that's going to stop at some point. I don't think they get like a 20-0. If they get to a 20-0,
you don't see that?
It'd be hard for me to say that they're not number
30-0.
Like if they somehow if they get to 20-0, you can mark me down as them being number 1 in the country, because then I'd have to say at that point they are like they're going to be beating some really good teams to get to that point. But yeah, I'm with you. I think UCLA has to sweep a lot, and that's tough, but that's just kind of the schedule they've been given. Like I think that they have to go out and keep winning baseball games, especially if Mississippi State or Texas go on some sort of run in the SEC to start. We're going to have to really take a hard look at that. But I think that I think we're safe here. I think that these are the top 3 teams in the country. I feel good with where we have them seeded now, and I'm really excited for SEC play and Big 12 play to get going this week. Like this is going to be outstanding. Any final thoughts, fellas, as we head into a big week in college baseball? I know we've got some games going on right now, but big week in college baseball coming up. Jason, any final thoughts here?
I just want to know, what are y'all sleepers for the conferences? Because I feel like we're about to jump into conference play. We've got enough of a data set. I'll start because I'll let y'all think about it. So I've already talked a little bit that I feel like, I don't know if West Virginia is my sleeper, but I feel like they're my pick. Big 12. I do like Houston out of the Big 12. You maybe would have said that one as well. I feel like you enjoy them. They're probably mine for the Big 12. For SEC, I felt like we've already talked about with Oklahoma. But for the ACC, I don't even know if you can call Wake Forest a sleeper. But for me, they feel like the team that maybe out of that like top 4 right now. Maybe them and NC State are in that like 3-4 position. Yeah. Maybe like I don't know, one of those with the force. For me, it feels like Wake Forest is one of those that I think when the dust settles, they'll be right there with Georgia Tech. They're kind of my sleeper. What about you guys?
I would agree with Houston in the Big 12. They were my preseason sleeper, like a team that a lot of people ranked really low in the preseason conference standings that I thought was going to have a decent push for it. I stand by that. I think it's Houston. I would not fault you for picking West Virginia or Kansas to turn things around. I think West Virginia is a great pick. Saban has done an unbelievable job since his tenure started at West Virginia. The ACC is tough for me because I don't know. The ACC is bizarre to me. It really is. Like, again, can you call Wake Forest a sleeper? If you can, like, if you want to go like true sleeper, like
Pitt's been great. Pitt's been great. Now I know like the strength of schedule is shit, but Pitt's looked really, really good. I struggle with sleeper and like because when you think of like ACC,
maybe
right, what is it?
Undervalued. Like I feel like not a lot of people are saying
Yeah.
like, oh, we can go out and win the ACC. I'm not sure that that's been talked about a ton. So I
Yeah,
think that's
it's
fair.
usually like the third sentence of a conversation. Like everyone starts, oh, the ACC, and then they'll start with like Georgia Tech, and then they'll throw out maybe like a Miami or a Florida State. Like, oh, and there's also like Wake Forest. So it's not like they're, yeah.
I'll throw you a wild one in ACC. Louisville. There's a lot of talent on Louisville. They are not playing to their potential right now. And if they put it together and they figure out their weekend rotation, the offense, once Zion Rose is back, like that offense could get going. There's not a lot of offenses I think that can match them in ACC outside of like the Florida State and Georgia Techs. I think that they're a team that could sneak in. I think they're a sleeper for me is that Louisville team if they put it together. Dan McConnell's shown that he can put together a team and make them be really good late. That's one. My SEC is still going to be A&M. I really believe in what they're doing. I think that they have the potential to make that jump from where we had them so high last year, and then they kind of put it together this year and just kind of shock people. I think if they were to win the SEC, I think that would shock people. But there's so many good teams in the SEC; it's really tough.
Yeah.
Big 12, it's Arizona State or Kansas. I think that Arizona State could really be
Arizona
that team.
State's a good one.
That's a good pick. I like
when
Arizona
they're playing
State.
well. Like they could do it. Kansas seems to not have what they thought they got from the D2, D3 transfer guys and those JUCO guys. Like they haven't been able to hit where a lot of us thought that they would. But they could turn it around real fast. So, but I like Arizona
I feel like
State.
I haven't heard Brady Ballinger's name since like week 1 of the season. I don't know if he's like in witness protection or I'm just not like catching enough of the games, but I'm just not seeing him as much as I felt like I used to. So I don't know what the Big 12 is. I really don't. For that,
it's gonna be madness
for me
this year.
Yeah, you were talking. Well, you're saying I don't know what the AC. I think the Big 12 is even crazier.
Yeah.
I mean, Cal Baptist just went and swept BYU on the road. So I have no idea.
And Utah hasn't given up a run in 33 straight innings.
Yeah.
I mean,
nuts.
Like,
that is nuts.
come on. What are you gonna? I don't know. Maybe they're really that good. I'm with you. Will, any final thoughts here as we head into the rest of the week?
I usually say the same stuff, but I'm going to go along Jason's. We posted a little graphic that, and if you're listening this deep into the show, you're a true sicko, and I'm very happy you're sticking around this late. But we posted a graphic of the last 2 undefeated teams, Texas and USC, and there was one comment on the tweet, and the comment was 2 blue bloods, the way it should be, and that is the correct usage of blue blood in the sport. And I am a huge fan of that comment because those are historically very good programs. That's what a blue blood is. In 15 years, we will talk about LSU being a blue blood. At the moment, LSU. That's a bad example.
Okay.
That's a bad example. Let me think of a better. There's got to be.
It's
better
like
examples.
Gorilla Ball was named after LSU
that was
in the
a
90s.
very bad example. But you get my drift. Like a team that is
Vanderbilt.
Of late.
That's a team people say is blue blood, and they're not a blue blood. Like they didn't do it for long enough.
We're getting into some conversations here that I feel strongly about.
Tennessee is not a blue blood.
But Tennessee, I would agree with Tennessee.
That's the good example. Yes, Tennessee. Okay, so not maybe in like 10 years we'll talk about that. But that was the correct usage of it, saying USC and Texas as blue bloods, because I saw a response to it that said, "What have they done in the last 10 years?" And it was like, exactly. Like that's why they're like. I agree, but that's the whole history.
USC
of the program.
Most titles ever, Texas most times at the World Series. Like that's what that.
Like, so
I mean, all you have to do is go
whoever
back to like
was.
2018, where Texas was like 2 or 3 years in a row in Omaha. I mean, post COVID, it hasn't been phenomenal for them, but even in like the years leading up to it, when they had Clemens, they were really. I mean, they weren't like winning it, but they were in Omaha like every year. It felt like.
Yeah.
Shout out to that guy who used blue blood correctly. Big fan of that one.
Jared Perkins, our director behind the scenes right now, as we speak, he just said Brady Ballinger 0 home runs on the season. So
really,
that is
I would not
a
have guessed
wild
that.
stat for a guy that was a first-team All-American in most baseball writers associations had them as a first-team All-American coming off of a 20 home run season last year. So he's going to turn around, and maybe that's what Kansas needs. So. Well, thanks again, folks, for joining us on another great episode of Top 25. Mark Garland here, Will Massa, Jason Ratcliffe will be back again next Monday, dropping our next 25. And see us on Thursday night for the live show and Saturday morning for the live show. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye.